Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program, we're going to be talking about a healing modality that's relatively new. Most of our listeners out there have probably heard the term Reiki, but have you ever heard of Holy Fire Reiki? We're going to find out what this can actually bring to our lives with this new form that is a gift to a world. It's a powerful vibrational energy, yet gentle, and provides purification, healing, empowerment, and guidance. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today, Master Teacher Colleen Benelli. Colleen, how are you today?
Hi, Daniel. I'm great. Thank you for inviting me today.
You bet. How did this all start for you in the discovery of Holy Fire Reiki, and what is it?
Well, I've been working with Reiki for a very long time, for about 14 years now, and I've been professional with Reiki, teaching it and as a practitioner. And so I've worked with a variety of teachers and trainings and lineages of Reiki. For the past 10 years, I've been a licensed teacher for the International Center for Reiki, and we've worked with the lineage of Usui Tibetan Reiki. Then back in January, William Rand, who is the founder of the International Center for Reiki, Reiki Training, or the ICRT, he was receiving a session from his spiritual advisor, and this energy came through him. He's been practicing Reiki since 1981, so a very, very long time, and working with the traditional Reiki all the way through Western Reiki, etc. So it was a completely unexpected development. Of course, in retrospect, we can all realize the signs that had been showing up perhaps for the year before the actual event of Reiki channeling through to him. So he called me within, about a couple of days of having received it and told me about this amazing new energy that he had received, and that it was called Holy Fire, and that it was combining with Reiki. And he wanted to know if I would be interested also of receiving this energy as well. And so, of course, I agreed and thought, yes, I'd like to get to know it and know what this is. And so I received what are called ignitions. Actually, it's a little bit different where Reiki used to be done, well, it still is done by attunement. But anyway, I received my ignition to Holy Fire, and I just found it to be this new evolution of an energy that, in fact, has come to the earth many times in many different ways. And what I have discovered since working with it in February, and I've probably given maybe 200 sessions, I haven't counted them exactly, with using Holy Fire Reiki, and I've probably taught maybe 75 people this Reiki energy. So I've had quite a bit of experience with it. And so what I have found it to be, and I'm still trying to get concise words that can define it because it's so undefinable, except through experience. What I have found it to be is the healing frequencies of Holy Spirit. Jesus was a teacher of these frequencies, a master teacher of it, and he was trying to teach us how to achieve God consciousness, or the place where all there is love inside each of us. And, of course, as we know, many of these modalities kind of became secret, and they were placed into the fields of religion, and politics became involved, and there was a lot of dogma around the energies themselves. And so what I have been shown about Holy Fire is that it has come through Reiki, because Reiki has no religion, no required belief system, no dogma, no political requirement. People of all faiths and all beliefs work with Reiki. And Reiki gives us a direct access to these energies on an individual basis, teaching us how to access it through our own heart and our own connection to it and our own belief system with it. So I've heard it described by one of my students with maybe more of a scientific viewpoint of it being the spark of pure consciousness becoming self-aware. I have experienced it as I think of my belief around God. God is the complete force of love in every creation. And in its highest form, God to me is all love and is almost formless. And then there is the spark of life that created all of existence. Holy fire to me is that spark, and that spark is in us and it's in everything. And it's called by a lot of different names. I happen to be using the terms God and Jesus and Holy Spirit, but it can also be explained through a scientific term. It could be called a bioenergy field. It could be called by a different belief system, such as access through Buddhism or Hinduism. I just happen to be working with that framework and those definitions. So that was a long-winded...
No, actually, it was a very great way to put all that, so we have a clear understanding about what it is. There's an interesting history, as you were talking about there as well. When a person comes to you, what generally is it they're seeking to do, and how does Holy Fire Reiki help with whatever that may be?
I would say that most of my clients, and Reiki is very diverse. I want to mention, too, that Reiki is really practiced in medical settings in a great way. So I'll talk about that after I answer this question. Most of my particular clients come to me for, I would say, emotional or spiritual healing. I have also, of course, physical ailments, but in my particular practice, and I just kind of watched how that showed up, most of the people that are coming to me are coming to me because they've had wounds in their life or trauma in their life, and they might feel fragmented, or they may have a really difficult time moving out of a particular pattern they're in, or to see how to get to their future. So the work that I do with Holy Fire, what I find is that it literally goes into the soul and working on a soul level to heal those spiritual injuries and wounds that have happened in this lifetime and in my belief system and experience also in other lifetimes. And oftentimes even some of the wounds that people have or the issues or the patterns have been created perhaps by ancestral issues that show up. And so what I watch Holy Fire do is that it literally comes in and it fills their spirit with so much love that flame that is within them, the passion that's within them, that spark of God, that spark of their true source of love becomes available to them. And then as that love becomes available to them in their system, it reduces their stress, it gives them their vitality, it allows them see through many of the issues, the ways, and the worries of the world are often how they're described to me. And so holy fire fills them with so much love that it heals those injuries. So that is talking about it from a spiritual standpoint. I recently wrote an article for Reiki News Magazine, which is an international publication called Introducing Reiki to Medical Personnel. And in that article, I describe how Reiki is used in medical settings. And of course, when I'm working in those settings, I have kind of a completely different, not intention, but I have a completely different language and verbiage that I'm using, because in that setting, Holy Fire Reiki is going in to heal the physical ailments of a person. And it's worked with in a much more, kind of neutral, I work with a much more neutral language that doesn't involve my particular spiritual belief system with it. We have the Northwest Reiki Association here in Portland that offers Reiki and to different cancer clinics and has bridged the Reiki community with the medical community. And so Reiki volunteers work in the cancer clinics. They work in 3 different ones at Providence Rehabilitation Center on Gleason. There are Reiki programs in the Providence Center for Medically Fragile Children. And so in each of those settings, Reiki is worked with in a far more kind of a clinical verbiage and method. So I'm kind of describing 2 different things. I personally practice a more spiritual style of Reiki, and my practice has evolved to heal those spiritual wounds. But also, when I'm working in a medical setting, then the Reiki is going to go in and it works with the physical healing, particularly because it reduces stress to such a degree that pain is reduced dramatically. In fact, in 2012, the Northwest Reiki Association compiled their statistics, and working with the 3 different cancer clinics, they found that in a 20-minute Reiki session, there was an 83% reduction in pain and a 91% reduction in stress, which is very dramatic. And when I have been there and volunteered, and of course we just go in and allow Reiki to do its work and have very little discussion about what it's doing, but people really report that it just brings peace to them. And of course that is what's going to facilitate the greatest healing possibility in the body as well.
You know, it's also fascinating to think that you can actually use something like this in a way that helps heal people from physical challenges.
Oh, absolutely. Widely practiced in hospitals. In fact, this article is on my website, ReikiLifestyle.com. It's free for anybody that wants to look at it. And in it, I document there are well over 800 hospitals in the United States that are offering Reiki programs, and some really big-name hospitals. There are Reiki research programs that are going on. If you research Reiki on many of the websites, such as the American Lung Association, they talk about Reiki as a complementary therapy to conventional medicine, because it's very effective as a complementary therapy. When it's worked with in the hospital settings or in the medical settings, it's often in the integrative medicine department or the mind-body department. And in fact, out in St. Charles, out in Bend, Reiki is so widely practiced that they even advertise Reiki on their billboards in town. in the hospital out in the Dalles, their Reiki program is actually in the spiritual care department. And so Reiki is given to people who are seeking that spiritual care. So it's been widely used, and it certainly has a lot of success. Dr. Oz, as we all know his name, he started using Reiki in his cardiology unit back in 1994. His wife is a Reiki master, and he's a big advocate for it because he uses it before his, heart surgeries, and the patients are actually receiving it before, during, and after surgery, and he's seen such a huge success rate with it that he really promotes it and advocates Reiki in medical settings.
It's so encouraging to realize something that's been around for a fairly long time is actually being brought into mainstream medicine, if you will, to really help complement what's going on, or even sometimes maybe exceed it a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, I think that all of the medicines complement each other. So, for instance, in some of the really significant successes that I've had with Reiki, one of my clients, and she has told me she's happy for me to talk about it, but one of my clients had a liver transplant, and she was rejecting her liver, and she was rejecting the medicines for the anti-rejection medicines. And when I placed my hands on her, and I want to explain that, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I'm actually very visual with Reiki, and Reiki isn't always practiced that way by other practitioners. So I want to clarify that not everybody is going to see the things that I'm about to describe. That is also part of my personal background, is that I'm also very involved as a shamanic practitioner and have been a part of the Light Song School of Shamanism for 17 years. So when I tell this story, I want to qualify it that part of my particular skill and profession is that I'm able to see what is actually taking place in a session. So all of that said, back to the woman with the liver transplant, she was rejecting the liver and the medicines, the anti-rejection medicines, and when I put my hands on her, I was shown that the liver was absolutely terrified, and that from its perspective, it had been in a body that was passing away, and it was starting to shut down also. And what I was shown is that it had its own cellular memory and its own, not certainly a complete consciousness, but its own consciousness. And that when it was taken out of the one body, it was simply put into the next one and injected with chemicals and told to work with no explanation. So in the session, I just talked with the liver and explained everything that had gone on, took the time to introduce it to the rest of the body that it was now operating within, and reduced the stress within the liver itself. And within 2 weeks, she completely stopped rejecting it, and that has now been, I think, 3 years ago.
Wow.
So I know it sounds a little far-fetched for...
No, there's nothing far-fetched. In fact, I think it's because that we've sort of had our imaginations in ways taken away from us with the advent of technology coming in. We have televisions, radios, and cell phones now, and that we don't step into that space where we get to realize how, and that sounds philosophical, that we're kind of, we are one with everything when it comes to energy, and you take energy down to its basic level, of atoms and molecules, and the idea that you can actually communicate, in this particular case here with the liver, in that particular way, because it's not, I think sometimes people can think of body parts in many ways like an auto mechanic thinks about parts to an engine. And yet that isn't that way, that within all of our organs and throughout our body, we have an energy signature and also memory as well. Cellular memory. It's all there. It's all that makes us up. And when you think of, for instance, the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton, who talks about a biology of belief, that we have cellular memory, it makes sense that you're coming into a liver that, just for the sense of being playful in a cartoon sense, is shivering and trembling, realizing, man, I'm in a different body. Am I going to be able to live up to something like this? Do I belong here? I'm scared. It kind of makes sense, actually.
Well, I thought so, and of course I had never thought about that before, and it just made complete sense to me. And where I was going with that story is that I was also shown that it's actually one of the missing pieces in transplant medicine, the understanding that each body part does have a cellular memory, and that it is possible to inform it about what is actually happening to it and to reduce its stress. And the good part with Reiki is that Reiki will do that whether the practitioner is able to see what is happening like I'm able to see it. That's part of my particular training. But the good part with Reiki is it's not required that you're able to see what is actually taking place. The healing will happen, and that healing would have happened with the liver, whether I was able to see the, what was going on or not. And Reiki and Holy Fire Reiki are given to you. So it's amazing to think that these healing abilities are also able to be passed on from person to person. And, there's there's no particular belief system required. There's no, religion to it. Many people who do Reiki actually like the spiritual connections that it enhances, but it's certainly not a requirement of the energy itself. And so I think that that's one of the reasons that it's doing so well in medical settings, is because a person can work with it completely from a scientific viewpoint, and they can work with it like myself, where I have a very spiritual viewpoint of it all. And Reiki really has no attachment to our belief. It will work however we believe in it. And in addition, it's going to help enhance our abilities to access whatever that energy is by all the different names we call it, and it just helps us access it simply and easily. And I think that's, what I'd like to say about Holy Fire Reiki. I think Holy Fire Reiki is coming to us now at this time mainly because it's actually kind of safe for us to go ahead and access these particular energies, the ones like I have called them the Jesus frequencies, because these are the healing frequencies that Jesus tried to teach us how to use and has successfully taught many people how to use. Back when he was walking the earth, he said, all of you can do what I do and more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that that's what's happened, is that these particular energies, if you take all religion out of it and just look at what this particular master teacher was trying to teach us how to do, that we can just access it, and it came through Reiki, because Reiki is so simple to learn, and it's passed from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it doesn't have to have a religion or dogma or any politics, and it doesn't, you don't have to go through years of study for it either.
So people can actually learn to do Holy Fire Reiki, is what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, how can they find out more? Do they contact you, or, what if it's in a different state, for instance, or somewhere out there in the world they happen to hear this and think, this is something I'm very interested in. How can they find out more?
There is a website my website's ReikiLifestyle.com, and of course I teach Holy Fire Reiki here in Portland, Oregon. There are several other websites that I'll go ahead and give you. Reiki.org is the ICRT website, and it has a list of the licensed teachers for Holy Fire Reiki. And then there's another website called ReikiMembership.com, and that's a referral website that has the states all listed, and you can click on your state and see who is in your area that's actually teaching Holy Fire Reiki. And, of course, you can Google it. It's a fairly new tradition, and I would think that we have probably now, between all of us that, started with it at the beginning, I would guess that there are probably maybe 400 or 500 people that are attuned to it now or ignited to it now. And it's actually even available over in England. I'm teaching over in Sweden next May. William Rand has taught in England. There's a man named Nita Mokanu who will be teaching in France in the next 6 months. So in the United States, it's those websites are probably the best source, Reiki.org, ReikiMembership.com, and my website, ReikiLifestyle.com.
Well, very good. Colleen, thank you so much. What a fascinating subject to be talking about and sharing with our listeners out there, that they can empower themselves to a level of self-mastery that might even be able to heal people around them as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for having this discussion and airing this topic. It's a beautiful, beautiful new energy, and I'm really excited about it and its potential and what it can bring to the earth. So,
well, we try to excite our audience with things like that. Thanks again, Colleen, for being on the program today.
Thank
Again,
you.
You can find out more, as she was saying. Visit ReikiLifestyle.com. You can find out quite a bit more about that, and there will also be some other links there as well. Or you can just easily visit us at Beyond50Radio.com as well. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.